Hey, welcome to Leadership Within, the moment for leaders to reflect on their human experience of leadership. I'm your host TK, and as always, I'm here by
Vanessa.
Yes, Vanessa. Hello. It's a bit of a heat wave, so it seems like hopefully today won't be a hot topic.
Yeah, it's very sticky.
With that, we can only hope that our listeners, when they're actually listening to it, are a bit more chill, because I've got an interesting topic that, for some people can raise the temperature. So let me give you some context. Yeah, well, hopefully it won't for you. So essentially, what I've observed in some leaders, that actually includes myself, is that certain people that want to achieve something, and you and I might know them as leaders of a creative type, even if they can't get something done, they don't find excuses, but try to figure out what is it that they can do to influence the situation. Now, that seems great, but it also can have a bit of a shadow side. Because if you're always trying to figure out what you can do, you can fall into what's called a high agency trap, which is, well, it's easy to constantly be ruminating and hanging on the fact that you're trying to find the solution, right? You're not giving up on something, constantly trying to find a way, and it can lead to a bit of a burnout. So, even if it's really positive, you can get stuff done, it can actually have this shadow side of, maybe trying to fix too many problems and seeking influence when there's none to be had. Have you encountered something like that, Vanessa?
Not personally,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm kind of really curious about what's the alternative if someone's really creative and that they're like really curious about something. Like I can understand how someone could get really caught up in that discovery.
Well, I guess it's like, Julius Caesar said, like, oh my God, let me just be able to influence the things that I can influence and give up on things that there's no use to. I'm paraphrasing, influencing, and may God give me the mercy of knowing one from the other, which is like, knowing when it's not your battle to fight.
Yeah.
Knowing when maybe it's not a priority to influence something, and not all problems need to be solved and influenced by you, right? Maybe sometimes, I'm not saying slacking off, but giving up on things just to remain sane.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. I mean, you're making me think. I just had someone literally today say to me, it's okay, Vanessa, I'm an adult. And if I'm unhappy about something, you don't need to take that on. It's like, okay.
And yet, right, if you've got the work ethic and, the personal values that you do, like it's perfectly normal, especially if, we're of a reflecting type and leadership within is the moment to reflect. It's only natural to see, okay, well, how can I do better? Or what can I actually do to solve the problem? As people say, when there's a will, there's a way. But, if that's always true, should we... Yeah, how do we stop ourselves from going too far? That's what I find interesting, because for God's sake, the thing is, there are times, and even this week, when I'm going to bed, I'm trying to sleep, and I'm constantly spinning round to fix an unfixable problem.
I was going to ask you what makes this a topic for you. So what I'm hearing is you're currently in it where there's something spinning in your head.
Well, yes. So the situation that I'm facing is, you might know that there's a very popular tactic that some people use, and that's not an episode about that. I think one of the prominent users of this tactic is a certain Donald J. T, a very prominent figure in some circles, a community leader of a big community. And what he does, and some people do, is be unpredictable. You can't beat someone in a game if they're not playing by any rules whatsoever, or they're playing by rules that they themselves make up and constantly change. Right? Being unpredictable essentially means that, well, it literally means that you can't predict someone's behavior. and what they're going to do. And in such case, if someone is using this tactic in a in a skillful way, that's something you can't easily influence. So when I've got stakeholders, part of the organization I'm helping, for instance, using this, being intentionally unpredictable to make sure that they achieve their goals. I'm not saying, doing something necessarily wrong. That's a valid tactic. You can become a US president using it. It's very hard to figure out what to do with that because, there are no rules. And in a when there's a will, there's a way scenario, I find myself at a bind. So, but there can be other examples too. I'm just giving you the one that it's on the top of my mind, which is the unpredictability of the situation needs certain way of thinking based on variance. So, there's different realities that can happen, and being able to reflect and process all of them, different strategies, is incredibly labor intensive. So that's definitely not helping my sleep cycle.
So
That's an example of something you can't give up. I mean, not entirely. Know your limit, I guess. Is it?
Yeah. Well, I wonder if it is. I wonder if it's having discernment to say how much am I going to put into this, and when is enough, and when do I stop?
A good way of knowing, I guess, in my example, would be, okay, if you're going to sleep and constantly thinking about that, is that really, something that's productive for you? Is it, in the overall sense, making you more, last time we talked about success, but more productive, happier, and able to fix the problems that actually matter? Because maybe you're hanging up on this, and I definitely am in this particular example. So that's one thing, but it definitely leads to a form of workaholism. That's derived from the fact that, okay, well, you really try, right? You've got this mindset of, well, anything you can get done.
Yeah. So if you weren't doing that rumination and that, how can I influence this? What would you be doing instead?
Well, I guess jamming my new music. If it comes to like this particular activity, right? So, I guess it can, but every one of us, I guess, has an activity that they would like to do, and or have a clearer mind, even if nothing else. Peace of mind, as they say, right? I don't flipping care, right? I can't influence it. Maybe I should just accept it.
Yeah. And that makes me think of the circle of control, circle of influence.
Yeah. So there you go, right? So that's a bit of a challenge. So I'm just wondering, if I were to convince myself, Vanessa, or maybe you also have some examples, how would you, what's the rational explanation, or maybe a non-rational one, to convince even myself to stop doing that because it's actually not helpful? I can't find one, to be honest, because I always try to be effective. After all, I'm not giving up. I'm sure that I can find a way to influence, and many times I do.
Yeah, it's funny because my daughter shared with me an article. I don't think I talked about this before, but about daring to be average. And I suppose the thing for me is what keeps you hooked and what keeps you on the hook. So, is it creativity? And it doesn't sound to me like it. If I go back into strengths theory, if it is a strength, and say the strength is innovation or creativity, but it's getting really hard, I'm not sure that you're actually using the strength of creativity. And I think maybe, stopping and doing something completely different is often a really good thing rather than trying to force it. But it just kind of makes me think about, if it's hard, then am I really doing my best work? So I notice, with clients, if I'm working super hard, that's actually an indicator that I'm not doing my best work. And if I'm overthinking really, really hard about something, that doesn't feel to me like it's coming from an energy of flow. It feels like it's coming from a much push hard, prove, fix something kind of energy.
Hmm. That's a brilliant point of view. Because actually, when you've said the word hard as you did, um, what stood in front of my mind's eye is John F. Kennedy saying, like, we're not doing it because it's easy, we're doing it because it's hard, right? The generation that did things because it was hard. Let's not generalize it as a generation, but it clearly was for many people is an inspirational speech. We're supposed to do the hard things because they make us better. But you're quite right. If something is within your skill and talent, it should be like effortless-ish, or
Maybe
like, yeah,
challenging, but there should be an element of
yeah,
flow to it. And I think I really
okay,
hear your um, John F. Kennedy example, and it
yeah,
makes me think of a leader that I am close to, who I find myself whipped up on this really passionate possibility. Ooh, like, so they're really inspirational. And then I end up overcommitting, saying yes
mm-hmm,
to shit that oh my God, I don't, have the space for. And
yeah,
then frustrated with myself or resentful. And I think
imagine, yeah,
sometimes those leaders, this is my learning at the moment, is like if someone is super, super inspirational, that's great. But is that inspiration on the agenda of where I want to put my energy and the thing that I want to be doing? And I think too often in my own life at the moment, I feel like I'm on someone else's agenda, which is weird because I'm not actually employed. So it's like, wow, it's making me look at if things are feeling hard and I'm caught up in some kind of what I would say drama about we've got
mm-hmm.
to resolve this or this has got to, this has got to happen. It's like, is this of my making? And is this where I need to be?
Tough questions to answer.
Yeah.
I guess if we're following someone else's agenda, it just feels safe.
Well,
After all, they're in control, right? Aren't they?
yeah. And I have to say, when I've been on this call, I've been really
Mm-hmm.
annoyed because there's a magpie outside of and you can maybe hear it outside my window. And magpies are known for stealing things, right?
Oh
And
yes,
so
yeah.
that then makes me think about this conversation and what's stealing my energy or my flow or my peace, and that idea that I have to deliver or force or push absolutely always steals my peace.
It does. I guess it's same for me, and I guess for many of our listeners. Um, we are the ones that permit ourselves to, give up our energy, our peace of mind, our happiness. And, we call it stealing, but I guess the decision is ours. But the interesting thing is, well, if the decision is ours, really, I'm really interested in the article about daring to be average. Right,
Yeah.
because that actually is a difficult decision to take. Now, throughout, I guess, my life, the society, everyone told me that, you should perform, succeed. And we talked about it last time. But the real difficult decision is to give up and be average.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's available from average
Oh, so much. Oh, my Lord.
rather
I
than
guess,
feeling like,
right?
oh my God, I should be at the top of the performance curve and
Damn it,
above
right? Yeah.
average in order to matter or to have esteem or whatever it is that it gives you. But it's like, actually, is that true?
I mean, it just sounds like nonsense,
Yeah.
right? When we're saying it out loud, it's just a complete denial of nearly everything we learn in the Western culture.
Yeah. Well, I think that's part of it, isn't it? It's kind of like, does this philosophy, this way of being and doing serve me? Is there a way that I could think about this differently? And I think particularly seeing as so many organizations are now in that place of like
Mm-hmm.
having to restructure constantly, having to make pivotal moves all the time. So it does make you question like, what does work actually mean to me? And how do I do great work without it becoming this burden?
Hmm. Well, yeah, it really makes me think. Um, and I'm actually like, even going back to the research I've done. By I mean, the wonderful large language model I've employed to do my bidding. But the interesting thing is, what I'm seeing there is the ACT technique, the acceptance and commitment therapy. Um, I mean, there are things that one can do to refrain from "I must fix this" to "I'm having the thought
Yes,
that I must
corrected.
fix." So as
Yeah.
again, it's like CBT,
Mm,
trying to notice myself on a meta level,
mm,
isn't it?
And I think what that does is it says like, okay, I am not my thinking, and then if you can separate out your thinking, you can also separate out your feeling. When I think that thought, what am I feeling? And I think so often, sometimes we're thinking I must fix this because we've got some kind of anxiety, or one is feeding the other.
Hmm.
And it's like, well, who says? Is that true? What else could be true?
Well, yeah, and one thing that my wonderful agent found for us in terms of research is like if I look at, and it even has nice names, Heinz and Linsky balcony practice, so stepping out of the dance floor regularly.
Mm,
So what I can see here is like, and that's actually something I could use, to be honest. So essentially, that would mean, as I'm reading this, and the listeners, you can look it up, that maybe I set aside some time where I contract with myself that this is the time for like stepping outside. And in this moment, Friday afternoon or whatever it is, right? And I'm not necessarily saying that I should distract myself with something else, that I might look at a distance and reflect on my thinking, right? That this is the moment where I'm not permitting myself to be constantly in this problem solving mode.
mm. Yeah, and maybe, a question to ask is, if I was on a
Hmm.
desert island, like just on my own on a desert island, would I still have these thoughts that I must fix something, that I must do something? Because I think sometimes we think it's the situation that is causing us to get caught up in those things, but actually sometimes they're just rules that we've got in ourselves.
It is true. And, unfortunately or not, wondering, because these are constantly reinforced, right? It's, we've learned so many rules in our lives, yet some stuck. We still hold dearly or not. And these particular ones, whether that, it's from how we've been raised or maybe the society is constantly reinforcing them. The interesting thing is, how do we call them out? Are we, am I myself brave enough to say, hey, this particular should is not the one that's serving me, it's someone else that's saying that.
Yeah.
All right, that's a difficult one.
Yeah. And I really like
Hmm.
that, the other article that you had around just saying, is this really up to me?
Yeah.
Is this really something that I need to be doing? Is this a control mechanism? Like, so that's the thing that I'm seeing a lot in leaders, is this
Hmm.
control. I have to control. And if I'm not in control, then I feel very anxious.
Well, is it natural? Because if I'm not in control, I am in danger.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I've said it as if it was true. Oh Lord! But actually, no. Well, yeah. Well, let's unpack it because, damn, it's like, well, quite often, and it sometimes might not be implicit in many cases when it comes to me, that I take responsibility, right? This kind of leader takes responsibility because, creative people take responsibility for the reality around them. And as such, if I don't have the control or even influence, like we don't have to use the C word, things might go out of hand and, I'm to blame.
Mm.
And we don't really want that, do we? And it just feels dangerous. I mean, being able to, like, in the Asian philosophy, to surrender to the will of the universe, it's a skill that requires a lifetime to hone, I guess.
Massively. Yeah. And I think that just trusting in the flow, like you can't not be on the path. And that whole thing of wherever you are is where you're meant to be, which is so what we can resist, isn't it? Like, I don't want to be in
Oh, yeah.
this.
Well, I'll tell you what. I have a friend that's very religious. They always say, "Well, you're quite lucky, right? You have all these rules that you conform with in your life, but at the end of it, you believe that what happens through the will of something greater."
Yeah.
And it's just easy to surrender to, in this particular person's case, God. Whereas actually, since I don't have this framework, I have to resort to my own high agency.
Well, so I saw a clip that was well, you could think it was slightly depressing. It was a like almost like a death doula talking to some patients who had who had terminal illnesses, and it's a film, and what she was saying to them was that your body knows how to die. Your body knows what to do, and it really stuck with me. Like, wow, that's so true. Like our body knows how to give birth. Our body knows how to do but the mind is the thing that's creating a lot of discomfort with a process that naturally we know how to do. So that kind of just really, so that's not thinking in terms of God or anything else, but it is saying there is a wisdom other than that of the mind. And so when we're trying to force our will to understand something, we're using one aspect of ourselves. We're not really using ourselves holistically, the fullness of ourselves, and trusting, like, wow, if this is something that actually I can't figure out in my head, maybe it's something from some, greater wisdom somewhere might give me some ideas around this. And maybe I can trust that actually, if there's a problem, there's naturally going to be a solution to it. And it's just a case of kind of holding it lightly and trusting that it may not be me that fixes this or that comes up with a solution, but actually inherently there will be a solution somewhere.
Whether it's our own bodies,
Yeah,
nature, or,
exactly.
whatever you draw inspiration from, it might be there if you're willing to see it.
Yeah.
If you only give it space. All right, well, I hope that we've given you some space to reflect in this episode of Leadership Within. And we'll see you next time in 2 weeks.